The year was 1900, 'tis worth remembering the men who lived through 55 days at Peking. 'Twas called the Boxers Insurrection, a bloody oriental war against all nations of the diplomatic corps. The flags of France and Britain, how they fluttered in the breeze, the Italian and the Russian, and the flag of the Japanese. Then came the sound of bugles, the rolling drums of doom. The streets of Peking were as empty as a tomb. Bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum. The nations built defenses, ragged as they were, as the leaders got together, the plan there to concur. Austrians joined with Frenchmen, Americans with Germans too. Italians fought by Japanese, and the British held on true. But all of this not to mistake the fact that there were more, for 11 nations fought along with the Chinese Christian corps. Bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum. The nations numbered 400, but the horde we couldn't count. If for each of us that went down, the odds we did surmount. Just as we were almost lost and surrender sounded good, a young boy brought us good news, and we all understood. For only 100 miles in the city of Tianjin, the relief army was coming to save our skins. Bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum. For many among the wounded then joined the fray again. The glory of our last defense was greater than any pain. They stormed the French legation, they attacked in shot and shell. They came in blood-red blouses, screaming shasha as they fell. But the drums have long been muffled, the bugles ceased to ring. Through the ages you can hear them echoing. Bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, ba-ba-dum bum 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 bum, bum 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 ba-ba-da-ba-dum bum, bum 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 ba-ba-da-ba-dum.